What happens when the recruiting process is designed to separate young athletes from their families? Behind the billion-dollar world of college sports lies a troubling reality. Parents are consistently left out of conversations that will shape their children's futures. While moms dedicate years to driving to practices, games, and tournaments, they're simultaneously losing their own identity, and their kids are losing theirs too. The system intentionally creates a wedge between families, with agents and coaches telling 17-year-olds to make life altering decisions without parental input. But what if there was a way to navigate this world without sacrificing family bonds or personal identity? Meet Jamesetta Cleveland, the Army brat turned sports mom revolutionary who's changing how families approach the business of athletics. After watching her son play Division I football at the Air Force Academy and navigating the recruiting process with all three of her children, she discovered a critical gap in the system. Parents had no roadmap for raising whole athletes who could thrive beyond their sport. Drawing from her project management background and lived experience as a military family, Jamesetta founded Sports Mom University Consulting to teach families the business side of sports that no one talks about. She's become a leading voice in name, image, and likeness education, reaching nearly 20,000 sports families daily through her online communities. Her mission is simple but revolutionary: ensure both athletes and their parents maintain their identities and family bonds throughout the intense journey of competitive sports. Today, we're diving deep into the hidden business of sports with someone who's pulling back the curtain on an industry that profits when families stay uninformed.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Impctrs Out Loud with me, Tracy B. Allen. And today I have with me Jamesetta Cleveland, and she is the owner of Sports Mom University Consulting. And she's here today to talk to us about what Sports Mom University Consulting is and how it impacts the community that she deals with, which is, of course, based on the name, sports moms and their children, right? So, Jamesetta, welcome to Impactors Out Loud. Why don't you tell us, what is your cost tale?
My cause tale is athletes and their families, specifically sports moms, because what I have noticed is in the journey of athletics, two people tend to lose their identity. It is the mother who doesn't learn, she just completely forgets who she is by the time the process is over. And it's the athlete who doesn't have an opportunity to create their own identity outside of sports. And because these things don't happen appropriately, when sports is over, oftentimes both moms and athletes have a very difficult time with transition.
Really? Wow. Okay. So, how did you get involved in this line of work? Like, what is the backstory? So, how did Jamesetta get from, let's say, high school, college to this very point? I know some of it from reading your bio, but I want you to tell the audience.
Well, I started because uh, I am an Army brat, and one
Okay.
of the things that was happening when my parents, when I was in high school doing my sports and things,
Mhm.
is Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and
Okay.
so for a quite a bit of what I felt like my major sports activities, my mom and dad, they were in the Middle East fighting a war.
Oh, they were both in the military?
hmm
Okay. What sports did you play?
So in high school, I did cheerleading and I ran track.
Mhm. Oh, okay.
And so when I got married and had kids, I
Mhm.
knew that my kids were going to play a sport. Like I just knew that they were. And so they played all the sports. And the
Mhm.
other thing that I knew is that I wanted my kids to be supported in a way that I wasn't. And this is where I'm saying this is nothing like negative about my parents.
Mhm.
Not very many people sign up to defend this country, and even less sign up to say, okay, we're going to go fight a war. So they weren't missing my activities because they just didn't want to come. They were
Right.
missing my activities because they were deployed. But
Mhm.
a kid, they don't care about that part. They just know that mom and dad can't show up. So
Right.
I said that I would be different and that I
Mhm.
would show up. And so my kids started playing sports, and there wasn't pressure to be pro,
Mhm.
but my son was the littlest. When we started playing football, he was 5, and he was frequently the smallest kid on his team. And one day, he was maybe between 7 and 9, and he comes to me, he says, "Mom, I'm gonna play in college, and I'm gonna play college football because they keep telling me that I'm too small and I can't." And so
Mhm.
that became a journey where they were all going to play sports, but I had one that was like, "Oh, I'm going to play in college." But the way our journey worked is the first time I went through the recruiting process was with my oldest daughter. I she would she My girls were cheerleaders like their mom, and they did track too. They did
Oh, wow.
track.
They
Yes.
definitely followed in your footsteps.
So I went through the recruiting process with my oldest daughter.
Mhm.
And I noticed, I was like, where's the place where if you are raising athletes and you want them to be whole people and you know that they're not their sports, where's the place that actually trains moms to raise athletes? And
Mhm.
where's that place? And I couldn't find it. So a couple of years as I'm in the thick of recruiting with my daughter for cheerleading and track, my son starts to get recruited for football and basketball. And if you are a parent whose child is recruited in what they call the revenue generating sports, the ones that actually make the money, you know that it's very different. And so very few people respected that I wasn't raising somebody or who needed to grow up and take care of his family. I was raising somebody who just said, he's contrary. I'm going to show people that I can do what they say I cannot.
Mhm.
So because I couldn't find the place that you go to learn how to raise an athlete appropriately, I collect people and I ask a lot of questions. And so along, like I'm the mom at the ball field who's explaining all the rules, but I got tired of explaining the rules. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I want to watch my own kids. So I would take the moms in my circle who had questions and
Mhm.
what I called the subject matter experts in my circle who had answers. And I would put them together in these little events called Sports Mom University. Well, my son played in college. My oldest daughter decided that she didn't want to do any sports in college, and that was okay. That was totally fine. But my
Mhm.
son actually played Division I football for the Air Force Academy for 4 years. And
Mhm.
when he was graduating, I took a sabbatical. And I said, for a year, I'm only going to do the things that make me happy. And I did an event for high school football moms called High
Mhm.
School Football Mom 101. And it was a 1 day intensive where subject matter experts came to share their knowledge with sports moms. And
Mhm.
also, it ended with panel discussions because one of the things you don't know what it's like until you get in it. So I wanted current and former players and their moms to come and share their stories as well. And
Mhm.
when it was over, someone challenged me and they said, "Hey, this thing that you've been doing, you know, the basic part of having a business means that you actually have something people want to pay for. And
Right.
people paid you for this. You should
Mhm.
go, you should pray, and you should see if this is the thing that you're supposed to do." And so I prayed. I'm still praying about this one. But in August of 2019, a couple months after my son graduated from college and received his commission, I launched Sports Mom University Consulting. And I built the what I wish I had growing as I was growing up with my kids because we were growing up together because we were in the thick of it together.
Mhm.
And what I do is I help sports moms and their family navigate the world of recruiting, raising athletes, name, image, and likeness, or NIL for short, and going pro. And how I do that is I use tools to help them understand who they are and how they prefer to show up in the world so that they are making decisions in 3 key areas: athletics, academics, and entrepreneurship based
Mhm.
on how God uniquely created them. So it's been a journey. And I would say the journey even took a different turn because I have been following name, image, and likeness for several years, and I just knew my son would have the opportunity to take advantage. He didn't. He graduated May of 2019, and
Mhm.
Cal passed, the Fair Pay to Play Act in September of 2019. But what I have noticed And if I would challenge your listeners to notice this as well, there is one key voice that is consistently missing from the dialogue when it comes to name, image, and likeness, and it's parents. And so I designed a course for sports parents by a sports parent. It's called Name, Image, and Likeness from a Sports Mom's Perspective. And it's
Mm,
important. And so that kind of grew my business even more because name, image, and likeness is a hot topic. Um,
mhm.
we as parents consistently don't get educated. So I created a space for us to come so that we can actually get some education so that we can, again, help our children make the best entrepreneurship, athletic, and academic decisions.
So I love that. I love all that you've talked about. And for whatever reason, well, I do know the reason. I met Monique, and she's a athletic director, and she has just sent a whole lot of sports people to me. And so now I'm down the sports rabbit hole because you're like the maybe the I want to say seventh person in the sports field that I have interviewed on this podcast. So
Come on,
I
come on over. It's fun here.
So I am like down the sports from somebody who doesn't watch sports to you being very enthralled in what's going on in the sports world. One of the things that we see as outsiders, people looking in to the sports world, is that a lot of athletes, especially when they're recruited to play professional um, sports, they tend to fall out with their parents. Is that something that your program actually addresses? Whatever that rift that happens, I think it more happens when it comes to contract and money and you know I think the people who are recruiting is pulling them in one place and the parents are trying to pull them in another direction. That's kind of what I'm seeing from the outside looking in. Is that what's happening? And is that something that your program helps to address to keep the family unit together?
That is a great question, and I'm glad you asked. And so, what I do consistently is address exactly what you said. Um,
Okay.
One of the things that I noticed as I was raising my children is that they respected me because I was always learning. I might not ask the right questions, but they knew that I didn't care about looking dumb. I
Mhm.
was going to ask questions to help them get to where they needed to be. In recruiting, we always say you're helping a 17 or 18-year-old kid make a decision for the 40-year-old they will be. Well, most of us have never been through the process. So I was a question asker. And one of the things I learned from my son, because we had this conversation last night, is that because I was always learning, he
Mhm.
saw me, he and my daughters, they still see me this way, but they saw me as their advisor. They saw that, oh, I care enough to look stupid or dumb or to ask dumb questions or
Mhm.
to go out and make friends so that we could have wise advisors, when we had questions.
Mhm.
So one of the things that parents don't think of is they don't understand that one, you need to show yourself learning because there's going to come a time where someone is going to look at your child and they're going to say, well, your parents never played this sport or they never got here.
Mhm.
One thing parents don't recognize is that lack of experience coupled with an unwillingness to learn or to show themselves learning,
Mhm.
it already makes your kids doubt you. They're like, well, my parent doesn't care enough to learn about what I'm doing. So that happens as a part of the process because most parents aren't out there trying to figure it out. And there's a book that I recommend every sports parent read. It's called $40 Million Slaves. And there is a chapter called The Conveyor Belt. If I'm not mistaken, it's chapter 6. But I tell every parent they need to read it because one of the things I learned, because this didn't happen to my family, and the reason it didn't happen is because I was always learning and my kids saw me learning.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I learned is that the recruiting process itself is designed when it functions as it should,
Mhm.
it will actually separate an athlete from their family. And the way that it does that is you have grown men and women who are multi-millionaire coaches who are telling a 17-year-old or 18-year-old or 19-year-old kid, you
Mhm.
make the decision. And even though they sit down in our living rooms, they really want the kid to make the decision. So it's putting the child in a position of power. When you couple the child in the position of power with family members, dads, moms, or whomever the person may be, who are
Mhm.
unwilling to actually learn the business of sports or even acknowledge that there's a business of sports, it drives a wedge. It's natural. And so one of the things I do in my community consistently is talk about the fact that if you're not willing to learn, you're setting yourself up for separation. If
Mhm.
you don't learn the basic business of sports, you definitely can't be uh, a part of the process when I'm negotiating an actual contract. So we talk about it. I refer
Mhm.
them to the book. And one of the things that happened a few years ago as I started representing my business at the NFL draft because people grew with me. And so they're getting great opportunities, and I'm going and I'm supporting them in their great opportunities. And so it allowed me to sit in a lot of different rooms. And one of the things that I learned is that agents, specifically sports agents and marketing agents, a lot of them have a goal of separating an athlete from their family. They say by year zero, which is the draft, or by year three, the end of the first contract, towards the end of the first contract. And they want to do that because it makes an athlete easier to control. It's easier to steer them in certain directions. And so in my community, we talk very frankly about the fact that this is a reality and it's happening. I make sure that
So it's an open secret.
it is. Um,
Wow.
in the world, it is. If you
Yes. Yeah.
And it's funny because, as parents, we actually just don't think about those things. We don't think
Mhm.
about, a relationship with your child has to be intentional, it has to be deliberate, and it has to
Mhm.
be cultivated every single day. And
Yes.
because we think it's automatic, we
Mhm.
don't actually do the little small things like, oh, let me ask them, I learned this today. What do you think about this? Or I went to talk to this person, or I went to this event. And so our kids don't see us trying to match their knowledge level. And when I talk to athletes, they're like, yeah, that was the first wedge. People kept telling me, well, your mom, your dad, they never played professionally before. They never played college, or maybe they never played it at all. They've never negotiated a contract, and not even in a negative way, just a matter of fact way, because most times it's the truth.
Wow. I've always wondered. I suspected that's what it was, but I haven't heard anybody actually say that that is an intentional thing that they're doing. But it seemed that way because it happens so often. Um, I think you mentioned that you help with the negotiation process when they're going in. Is that something that you do?
So, what I do is I teach parents the business of sports. And when
Okay.
you teach them the business of sports and
Mhm.
what to look for,
Mhm.
it helps them negotiate better.
Okay. So you don't actually sit in on the negotiations with them.
Sometimes,
Sometimes. Okay.
some families trust me enough to sit in the
Mhm.
conversation. Some families
Okay.
trust me enough to help them select their own, their marketing agent or their financial provider or their sports agent. I'm building what I call my preferred partner network, and these are
Mhm.
people that I vet so that we know and trust them, and they don't charge like extra money because in the sports world, people jack up the price just because you're an athlete. And so
Right.
my parents actually, they take my recommendations. Some allow
Mhm.
me to sit in on the process, but all of them, my goal is to give them the knowledge to do what I call build or buy. When I was in
Mhm.
corporate America, I was a project manager, and I made the decisions where, okay, can my company build this particular tool, or do we
Mhm.
have to go out and buy it? And so I
Right.
want parents to understand the process of sports,
Mhm.
um, so that they can say, can I build this? Can I do this thing, whether it's running my child's nonprofit, whether it is negotiating a contract,
Mhm.
or do I have to actually buy this, go get someone else who's qualified to do it? So, yeah, I would say
Yeah.
for my sense.
You went into the right profession. You had a good transition because you had soft skills and hard skills from your last profession that fits perfectly into this profession. So, yeah, project management. Yeah. um, you talked about name, image, and likeness. And then you talked just now about nonprofits, and that's my specialty. I'm a nonprofit consultant. So, is that something that you talk to the athletes about from the onset? Because when I hear name, image, and likeness, I'm thinking about protecting your name, building a positive image for yourself, and protecting your likeness. Am I on the right path in any way? And when I say image, I'm talking about image, personal image, professional image, and giving back to your community. That's kind of how I see it.
So yes and no. So in
Okay.
in the sports world,
Hmm.
name, image, and likeness, it is the ability of college and high school athletes to make money off of their off of their name, image, and likeness. Because
Hmm.
before July 1st of 2021, and still in certain states, depending on where you are when it comes to high school,
Hmm.
legally they couldn't do things that other people could do. They couldn't start their
Okay.
own business. Like college students, college athletes couldn't start their own businesses freely or invest in businesses freely. They had to get a waiver.
Really?
So
Mm.
when I'm talking NIL, I'm talking about publicity rights that everybody has, but that
Okay.
because of laws, college athletes and high school athletes couldn't actually go out and do these things. Um,
Okay.
but in the world of nonprofit, so part of entrepreneurship for me is you have to use your influence for good. So I teach my
Hmm.
families that, everyone says ball is life, ball is not life, it's leverage. It's leverage to create opportunities that you wouldn't necessarily have. So
Hmm.
one of the opportunities you better take is you better impact your community in a positive way.
Right.
You get to decide what your community is, but you
Hmm.
better impact it in a positive way. I am a part of an organization called the Sports Philanthropy Network, and
Hmm.
we actually come in and we teach. Our director, Roy, is amazing. Roy Kessel. He has consistent classes where he's teaching families how to do nonprofit work. I'm glad you pointed out what you do because I'm going to share something with you.
Hmm.
People are frequently looking for a way to get into the sports world.
Hmm.
One of the most common ways that people use to get into the sports world is community activism and nonprofit work.
Hmm.
And so it's important that people like you who actually know how to do nonprofit work the right way begin to bleed over into our space, because oftentimes what I have found is that people will tell athletes, hey, you need to start a nonprofit because you need a tax write-off, but they haven't asked the athlete, what's your passion? They haven't
Right.
they haven't asked simple questions like, do
Hmm.
you want to impact your hometown where you grew up? Do you want to impact the town where you went to college? Or maybe
Right.
you want to impact the first place that you get drafted to should you make your home there. And so
Hmm.
you have all of these people giving conflicting information,
Hmm.
and athletes don't have a way of vetting to say, are you qualified to tell me how? Should I really, what should I be starting? Does
Right.
it be a nonprofit? Does it
Hmm.
need to be a family foundation?
Patient. Hmm. Hmm.
Do I need just a fiscal sponsorship? All those
Hmm.
basic questions that someone professional like
Hmm.
you ask those questions. Athletes don't get asked those questions. People come and say, hey, we're going to do something for a tax write-off. And they, at the end of the day, most athletes just get it, they cut the check. Well, you and I both know sometimes cutting the check isn't right. What about partnering with organizations?
Right.
The other thing that I see to athletes' detriment is, well, you're here, you want your mom to have a job or your dad to have a job. Let's just
Mhm.
start a nonprofit and they can run it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
like, no, you can't actually. They might not be
No,
able to do
no,
it. So
because you
it's
don't own it. It's not yours. It's a publicly owned entity. And I keep telling people that over and over. If you're looking for money, that's not where you go. you
so,
know.
so I one of the things we talk about is like, hey, someone's gonna come to you and they're gonna tell you to start a nonprofit.
Hmm.
Might not be the best bet for you.
No.
You might want to ask them, are you qualified? What nonprofits have you started? Do you
Hmm.
understand? Like literally, like I had to learn myself because I wanted to make sure. I just saw that this is an area that athletes get exploited. And I was like, I don't know about nonprofits, but I want to learn because this
Right.
is something we need to understand.
Hmm.
And so just even being able to tell them like, hey, if you decide that if you get drafted to Green Bay and you start your nonprofit at Green Bay, but then you get traded to Philadelphia, and you got, if you want to do nonprofit work, you got to do new paperwork in
Yeah.
Phil in Philadelphia. So like
Yeah.
things like that. Oh my gosh, the number of people who just come in and say, "Hey, I'm going to help you with your nonprofit for a fee," or "I'm going to
Hmm.
teach you how to write, use it as a tax write-off for a
Exploitive.
fee." So they need,
Hmm.
so the sports world. I'm glad you're over here. That was a long
Yeah.
way of me saying we need people like you who know what to
Yeah.
do, like we
And I
do.
mean, well, in the regular world, people get upset with me because I tell them when they come to me, sometimes I'm like, I can't help you start your nonprofit because I don't think that's the right thing for you. You're not set up financially yourself, or you don't have the skills right now to start a nonprofit. And like you talked about earlier, maybe fiscal sponsorship is a better route for you to go through, or just creating a program and working with a nonprofit through that route. Or better yet, you need a business. So why don't you start a social enterprise? That's a good alternative to starting a nonprofit organization. We don't always have to have the quote unquote tax write off in order to do good in our community. And most of you are starting a nonprofit because you need to make money, and you need to make money and own it and run it, and no one can terminate you. That's not for a nonprofit. That's a for profit business. That's a social enterprise. So, yeah.
At you auditioning to be a part of the preferred partner network. I love this
Well, I wasn't really auditioning, but good. If this is an audition, well, then I'm happy to be auditioning.
because this is the information that my community needs. Because going back to our conversation about NIL, because athletes are able to generate revenue or to make money.
Mhm.
I have athletes in my community so I didn't say this, but I have run a couple of online communities. There's almost,
Okay.
so on a daily basis, I can touch almost 20,000 different sports families.
Hmm.
There are some kids in my communities who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars in the name, image, and likeness space.
Hmm.
Want to do great things, but don't know how to do great things. And
Hmm.
so it's really important that we have people like you that we know so that we can say, okay, what should I do?
Hmm.
Instead of someone just saying, you know what, you just need a tax write-off. Come over here and let me do this for you, and then I'm gonna just charge you a fee. Like
Right.
younger and younger
Hmm.
kids are having access to dollars, and we need people who know how to do things the right way.
Hmm.
Just this week, a young man had, his name is Julian Lewis. He's from Georgia, but he is going to be he's one of the quarterbacks at Colorado. He made the news
Hmm.
because he donated $5 million to his local area in Georgia. And what he did is he built homeless, not shelters, but he built housing for people
Hmm.
who.
Affordable housing. Hmm.
And so things like that, like
Hmm.
it's important to have people like you who can come and sit down with young kids to say, oh, let's broaden your horizon, because it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be the typical way of the sports world where you
Hmm.
say, nonprofit, and a nonprofit isn't really what you need.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's good. Um, I enjoyed this conversation. This was very insightful. I'm glad I got clarity around the name, image, and likeness and what that actually means in the sports world versus what I thought it would mean in the regular world. Kind of similar, but still very specific to the sports world. Um, Tell us, what makes you an impactor?
Really, what makes me an impactor is my ability to change the lives of the people around me. I grew up. I'm about to show my age. We watched we watched GI Joe, and
Yes, I did too.
at the end of GI Joe, they would say, "And now you know, and knowing
Yep.
is the battle."
Yep.
Listen, I just showed my.
Saturday morning cartoons.
And so I always grew up with the thought process: knowledge is power. I need to know. And someone challenged me a few years, actually. Dr. Eric Thomas challenged me a few years ago. And he said, knowledge is not power, it's properly applied knowledge that is powerful. And so by coming in and teaching families that, one, you're in a business if your child plays sports, whether they're 5 or 55. And now that you understand that you're in a business, let's talk about the different aspects of the business side of sports so that you can raise someone who understands sports is what they do and not who they are. And they can walk away from the sport whole, not depressed, not suicidal, not lost, but whole, understanding I had an opportunity to play my sport, but I was never going to retire from it. And so I'm going to pivot into real life. And
Mhm.
for moms, I'm an impactor because I help them understand that you have got to have friends that are not attached to your sport. Because when your child stops playing the sport, if you don't have friends that are not attached to sports, you're going to figure out that all your friends. So I spent a lot of time playing football. Sometimes people figured out that they had football friends. And when their child stopped playing their sport, football or track or whatever it may be, not only did they not be around the sport, but they lost all of their friends because they only had friends because they were in familiar, similar spaces.
Right.
And these are not people that these moms would ever talk to if they weren't doing whatever sport. And we don't understand that. We don't have we don't have like a way. There's nothing in the parent handbook that says make sure that your friends are from diverse walks of life, because
Mhm.
if you get into athletics or dance or something really serious, you may
Mhm.
find you've limited yourself just like your child did, and you aren't whole either.
Yeah.
So that's how I bring in awareness and knowledge, teaching them how to properly apply it for their own unique situation so that they can actually walk away from the process whole. That's the most important impact.
Okay. And if you had to leave potential sports moms, those who are in middle school, high school at this point in time, with three tips or strategies that will help them to move forward, what would those things be?
I would say, first and foremost, always be learning and show your child that you are willing to learn. I'm willing to be a beginner with all of its discomfort because I love you. I would say, I know this is going to sound really, really like crazy, but make your child take a year off from their sport.
Hmm.
And the reason I tell you to do that is because in the world of raising parents, in the world of raising athletes, or in the
Mhm.
world, well, let me back up, in the world of raising children in general,
Mhm.
two things get immediate feedback from parents. When your child brings home that report card slash
Mhm.
progress report, and when they do well or not so well in the sport. And
Mhm.
so oftentimes our kids can start to wonder subconsciously, do we love them without the sport? If you make them
Mhm.
take a year off from their sport, one, you're going to actually make their body rest. And
Mhm.
that prevents burnout. and it can prevent overuse injuries as well. But more than that, it lets your child know that you love them whether they play a sport or not. And in a culture where lots of kids are told that when you go pro, you're
Mhm.
going to save the family,
Oh,
taking that year off is
mhm,
very crucial to them understanding that you actually love them for who they are and not what
mhm,
they do. And then the last thing that I would say is be very clear on who speaks for you and your child.
mhm,
In the world of athletics, multiple people presume to speak for families. And that speech could be calling a college coach saying, "Hey, I am so and so's my guy. I He's going to come to your school, or so and so's my girl. She's going to come to your school." It could
mhm,
result in a conversation with an agent. And frequently in the world of sports, people are presuming to speak for families and they have no idea what the family wants. And they may not even be
mhm,
connected to the family that way. So definitely always be learning.
mhm,
Let your child take a year off and be very, very clear publicly and privately about who speaks for your family.
mhm. Those are good advice. Good pieces of advice for sure. Where can people find you and get in touch and join your groups? Because you said you have several groups. So if they're sports mom, I'm sure you work with moms throughout the United States. You don't have to be in a specific state. So tell us, where can people find you?
So people can find me on social media. I am on Twitter. We want to say formerly known as X, but it's always gonna be Twitter to me. If your mom
I know.
call you
I know. Yeah.
Twitter. Twitter, Threads, and Instagram as at sports sports underscore mom mom underscore you. And I am on Facebook as Sports Mom University. I always share tips and classes there. If you'd like to be a part of my group, you can look for the Sports Family Network on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
And they could definitely be a part. But if you reach out to me on social media, I can make sure that I connect you with the appropriate group.
Great.
So the more the merrier. There's never enough parent education. Never.
Mhm. I agree. I agree. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and providing us with valuable information that I know the audience is going to be able to wrap their minds around, because I think a lot of sports people are following me now because of all of the interviews I've done. So, thank you again for being our guest. And until next time, guys, bye bye.